Okay, let's get it. Black girl magic dripping. Yeah, she's on a mission. Keeping our culture lifted. Now you can watch and listen. And Tammi Mac. Oh, what show is that? It's the Tammi Mac Show on Fox Soul. Tammi Mac, Tammi Mac, yeah. Who that? Tammi Mac, hey. So you know it's Tammi Mac, hey. Tammi Mac.
Welcome to the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. Hey, everybody. I am Tammi Mac. That's Tammi with an I. Best-selling author Ta-Nehisi Coates once said, Black America ever lives under that skeptical eye. Is that the case for only Black Americans? Or is it the same for Black people across the globe? Ooh, we coming with some good questions today off the back on the one like James Brown. Do other nations look at Africa the way Americans see Blacks? What is it about us that makes us so different? What is it about us that erupts the passion of disdain? What is it about us that evokes this hatred we consistently receive? What is it that makes us us? Well, tonight, the business of being Black is literally being Black, part 2, if you can believe it. Please welcome back the author of Uncontrollable Blackness and assistant professor at Washington University in St. Louis, Douglas Flo. Hey, Douglas.
Hi, how are you doing? It's great to be back.
Vice News correspondent Dexter Thomas. Hi, Dexter.
Hey, happy to be back.
Glad to see you. And the principal consultant at Sean J. Fletcher Consultancy and tenure track professor at San Jose State University, Sean J. Fletcher. Hello, everybody. And I might add the title doctors on all three fellas. Why should Black people care about what makes us us? That's how we cracking it. Why should Black people care about what makes us us, Dr. Fletcher?
Well, when it comes to a history of pride and ensuring that we have the self-love that we for centuries had to try to fight to maintain, it's imperative that we continue to see what makes us beautiful, what makes us vibrant, what makes us powerful, what makes us contributors to this society, and specifically America, that so long has tried to scrub away our contribution to it. So I could go on and on about what makes us us and why we should value it.
Ah, well, okay. Well, look, go on and on. We ain't stopping you. We got 60 whole minutes.
I'm gonna pace myself, Tammi. Let me pace
Look, I got my timer on you because I would like to hear you go on and on about what makes us us. Because all that right there, I was feeling. You know, you took me back to the 60s. Say it loud, I'm Black and I'm proud. Black power. I was feeling the whole movement right there. Okay, Dr. Flo.
Yeah, I'm going to bring this back to history, as I often do with these sorts of conversations. African Americans have had to struggle for most of American history, actually all of American history, to really come to some sort of way of defining a collective sense of destiny, right? When you find yourself completely encircled by threats, there's a need to kind of circle the wagons, right? And so one of the reasons why it's important, and your question is important, why African Americans need to or should care about what makes us us, is because understanding that is a part of understanding our collective sense of destiny. Throughout American history, particularly in the period that I look at in my book and in a lot of my work, the turn of the 20th century, the early 20th century, the new Negro movement, the Harlem Renaissance, this was a time when African Americans were thinking about Blackness in very complex ways. We're growing what it means to be Black, growing Black identity, and also, again, redefining and constantly redefining and understanding what it meant to have a collective sense of where we're going, where we want to go, and how that could help us get there.
I'm circling back to you because you said something that I want to follow up on, and you too, actually, Dr. Fletcher. So we're coming right back to you all. Dexter, I know you're about to lay it down. Lay it down.
I mean, I hesitate to repeat something that I've said previously with you, but again, why should we care what makes us us, or why is this question important? Again, I'm gonna bring it back to Jay-Z, right? I'm not a businessman. I'm a businessman, business comma man, right? blackness is a business, right? And the identity of blackness is a business. And so why should people care? Of course, because this is a business. This is something that money is changing hands, whether or not black people are involved with it. But I think also maybe on another level, again, to just go back to the history that you were talking about, is that what makes black people black, right? Even that concept is something that was defined and continually being defined and decided for black people before they had any sort of agency or any sort of ability to participate in that discussion, right? Black people, if you go back, and we could go back as far as history as we want, people in Africa didn't necessarily call themselves black. Somebody decided, hey, you're black and you're worth less than us, and we're going to put you on a boat. This has been for a long time, for the majority of history, actually, part of the black experience is having what does being black mean, having that defined by somebody who is not black. And I think the discussion of black people trying to define themselves or making that effort to define themselves, even just in the last few decades, has been fascinating and really important, I think.
Look, I have to come back on something each of you said, and I'm going to start with you. I'm going to start with you, Dr. Thomas, but I want to ask this question. You mentioned something, but I want to turn the question from you to Dr. Flo, because when you say it was, I mean, you got, there's so much wrapped up into this. When you say that when we were in Africa, we were not called black, I think that's news to some folk. And so I want to know, is there some history there that we need to know about, Dr. Flo? What were we referred to as? And did we call ourselves black? Or is that something that the colonizers created?
Yeah, I mean, what you have to understand about Africa is that it's many different nations. And when I say nations, I don't mean what we see now as these separate places with borders that didn't exist before they were fractured by colonization. But I mean peoples, right? Tribes, people that had different empires and different languages and different cultures. And they did not, I mean, first of all, they didn't use the word black, obviously, because black is an English word. But they referred to themselves as their peoples, as their cultures, as, their defining cultural features. So the whole binary that we now think of as whiteness and blackness did not really exist, especially not in the way that it does now, until there was a need to create that binary. And that need was by white slaveholders, people who needed to create a separation between us and them. We are white, we are different, we are superior, we are European, and all of these people, this massive people whose cultures we don't understand as separate, whose cultures we don't necessarily respect or care about, all of those people are black, right? So we can kind of put them all under the umbrella of blackness for this need to create a binary that ultimately supports this hierarchy of racial power.
And then Dexter, I want to come back to you because people, when they look at rap music and hip hop, they have a certain view of it, a view that suggests that it's negative, that it's only about ass and titties, that it's only about, it's only about murdering other black folk. It's only about pimps and cars and rides and what we spend our money on. But when you refer to Jay-Z, there are several rappers that we can call out who have called out America for what it is in the way that black folk do. So when you talk about Jay-Z, I want to talk about that quote a little bit more, because I think you have to hear it several times before you hear it. So say the quote again. Yes, say the quote again.
Yeah. So, and I'll say it again. And I am not Jay-Z, so I'm not going to do it justice. But again,
of course you're not.
Look, I'm not a businessman. I'm a businessman. And so again, I'm not a businessman. Me, myself, I am not a person who does business, or I'm not just that. I myself am a business, right? And what's being said there, and there's so many layers to it. And it's one of those things, exactly as you're saying, Tammy, it's one of those things where I think if you're not really in tune with it, if you're not really paying attention, it might not make sense until you see it written down. You see the comma in between business and man, and it's extremely subtle thing. But I think again, what he's talking about is that he himself is recognizing, I am a product. And what do you do with that? And what is the Black experience, or what, you know, a good deal of the Black experience, again, was being a product.
Woo.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm saying. That's deep. And then businessman is a compound word, but then business, comma, like you said, man, that puts it in a whole different perspective. And Black, look, oddly enough, the Tammi Mack Late Show is about the business of being Black. And so being Black is a business, and it is how America has done business since we landed on this continent.
Mm-hmm.
I see you shaking your head, Dr. Fletcher. Let's go.
Oh my goodness, I'm chomping at the bit. And I fashion myself as a Jay-Z connoisseur as well. I think one of the striking parts about that lyric was sometimes taken out of context, that it was sort of self-aggrandizing. And it was him thumping his chest.
Yeah.
But a lot of that was inherent in what we started this conversation off with, about seeing the value of who you are, but also recognizing how America and this economy commodifies Black culture and who Black people are. And once you see that, what you truly bring to the table, you can take back that power of ownership of what's been co-opted and what's been taken. And you can actually pull what you so desperately deserve. And that's what I took from that. I took it even when I was a youngster listening to that lyric, that was a lyric of empowerment, more so than it was the stereotypical rapper thumping his chest. No, that was a nugget.
Yeah. And I don't think that he was, look, I'm sure it meant multitudes of things, and I don't mean to be in Jay-Z's head, but I honestly believe that I'm a businessman refers less to Jay-Z as a business and a product, and more to the color of his skin being a business and a product.
I think it could be all those things.
Yes.
Again, I think it can absolutely be all those things. I think, you know, and I think it could be thumping your chest, because what is more American and masculine than that precise activity, right? Saying, oh, look at me, look what I've done. But I think it could be all those things. And I think, again, just as you said, Tammi, I mean, you know, the multitudes that are contained within lyrics, and it's not just Jay-Z, you know, I mean, me being from the West Coast, I can't, you know, I love Jay-Z. I can't say too much about the dude because, again, that's not my hometown, but, you know, it should be respected, as you were saying, as hip hop does contain a lot. And yes, does it contain some of the negativity that we all live through or have seen? But there is some of that really, I hesitate to even just call it poetry, because I don't think poetry even does it justice. Mm-hmm. It takes you to a level where it really can make you think about some things that it functions on all those levels, I think.
Yeah. And it's a part of what makes us us. I'm a businessman. That makes us us. We're a business for this whole nation. And speaking of business, I got to handle some right now. A few commercials, and we'll be right back on the Tammi Mack Late Show on Fox Soul.
Tammi Mack.
I don't know Selena very well, but I know y'all.
What's up, y'all?
Y'all a mess. A mess. But I love you and I adore you.
Cocktails with the Queens.
Do you have a celebrity crush? No, I ain't got no celebrity questions now. I'm pretty much good.
Sip and serve every Monday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific.
Claudia produced the movie. I was in her movie. Yeah. She had a fine young man too. Lord have mercy.
Stream it live on Fox Soul.
They stepped up and enlisted to bravely serve our country. But life is challenging, and sometimes we need a shoulder for support. Two things that should never go together: veterans and homelessness. That's where U.S. Vets comes in. Founded by veterans to uplift veterans, U.S. Vets is an army of professional staff, donors, veterans, and civilian volunteers alike.
U.S. Vets is a home base for opportunity.
We might root for different teams, but we all respect the game. And we can all root for each other when we wear a mask. Mask up, America.
Hey Soulmates, I'm Brooke from Fox Soul's Black Report. We cover the most important issues affecting Black America. From Capitol Hill to Main Street, we've got you covered. For 4 years, and he didn't get it done.
He didn't get anything done. He didn't get the wall done.
We're giving you a voice, whether it's Black excellence, social justice issues, HBCUs, politics, everything in between.
Those questions were not answered, and I am still coming for them.
Check us out on Fox Soul's Black Report, Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific.
Welcome back to the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. Tonight, part 2 of What Makes Us Us. And by us, I do mean Black people. I would be one of us, a Black person.
Hadn't noticed.
Just in case. You know, sometimes people mistake me for Black. We're going to our chat room. Bo L is not happy with the conversation we just had, fellas. Can somebody clear things up for her? Because I think he misunderstood us. Bo L said, we are not businesses. We are spiritual, vibrant entities. Don't let America trick you into believing you are a product to be sold. That's not necessarily what we meant, though, was it?
No, not at all. And I'll just jump in. I think there are two things can exist at the same time. We can be spiritual beings who embrace who we are as individuals who cannot be marketed and sold. However, when we were speaking about the one singular lyric that Jay-Z wrote in his song, that allowed for us to continue down talking more about who we can be as we're intersecting with America, and oftentimes how our value is co-opted and others make money off of us, as opposed to us making money off of our value and our brand and our culture and our richness. So outside of hip hop, absolutely, there's a lot more to us than simply being commodities. That's not who we are at our core at all. So hopefully that was not misconstrued.
Yeah, and if it was, Bo, I hope you got it right, because none of us on this panel believe we are marketed to be sold. We do not believe we are still slaves on the auction block with price tags on us and branded. I don't think that's where we're going with this at all. I want to go to Dr. Flo real quick. Something you said earlier. You said we should understand who we are because we are a collective sense of destiny. It connects to our collective sense of destiny. What is our collective sense of destiny?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really great question. It's a question that a lot of people have wrestled with throughout American history. It's part of the question that, just to pick one person, a very prominent person, Marcus Garvey was thinking about when he wanted to create this kind of global Pan-African community that would be connected by the Black Star shipping lines, right? For people like Marcus Garvey and for a lot of African Americans, you know, people who had such grand ideas as he did, all the way down to people who just open a restaurant in an African American community. Throughout our history, we've had this kind of understanding. You know, even recently, we're talking about Buy Black, right? Go and support Black businesses. We have this understanding that there's a Pan-African community, not just African Americans, but that we have this global community that to some extent is dealing with, you know, maybe different localized versions of the same issue of racial hierarchy, and that our collective destiny is to break through that. You know, how that happens, many people have different ideas. I would say there are a lot of people, especially economic Black nationalists like Marcus Garvey, who would say it's by competing together in the market of capitalism, global capitalism.
Okay. So lecturer Jane Elliott, which I'm sure you are all familiar with, once asked an auditorium of white people if they would like to be treated like Black people. Let's take a look at Jane Elliott.
If you white folks want to be treated the way Blacks are in this society, stand. Nobody's standing here. That says very plainly that you know what's happening. You know you don't want it for you. I want to know why you're so willing to accept it or to allow it to happen for others.
Glad she's teaching white folk. I don't think they learn though. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that there's a collective sense of destiny with white America that we should be included in a real way. But let's put ourselves in their shoes for a minute. What do you think white people think it's like to be Black?
Well, I think it's indicative of the response that you saw in that video, that white America, they are not ignorant to what they see and what they believe about African American, Black and African American communities. They fully see the disenfranchisement, the marginalization, historically and even current. Let's not just leave it in the past. Currently, that Black communities continue to face. That's why they said, I don't want that. And I think that's still present even today. So white people are very, and I hold conversations with leaders, and a lot of it deals with a lot of the education of disenfranchised communities, including my own culture. And the awareness that they have may or may not shock you. They're more aware of what our experiences are like. Obviously, they cannot walk in our shoes, but from a outside perspective, they see that's indicative of what you saw in that video, Tammy. That while they may want to walk in our shoes from the standpoint of even the conversation that we had earlier, and this is where it's up. The conversation about hip hop, the conversation about co-opting our culture and co-opting some of the things that they've commercialized, that's the part they want. But it's the part that they see when we can't get along, when we're not allowed to go into certain communities. Go ahead.
I can't roll with you on this one, Dr. Fletcher. I can't roll with you. Too many white people have said to me personally, if you just, and I'm paraphrasing in Martin Luther King words here, if you just pick yourself up by your bootstraps and work really, really hard, you can overcome all of this stuff that you're faced with, which tells me you don't know what the hell I'm faced with.
No.
And if you do, you don't believe it. I mean, literally, my next door neighbor said, if you look, Tammy, you've worked really hard. You've got a radio show. You've got a television show. How can anybody possibly, how is America working against you? Like, I don't even know how to answer that. And I'm about to cuss now. I don't even know how to answer that question, Dr. Fletcher. How is it working? I don't even know how to answer the question. My best friend, Kelly. Oh, she might be mad at me saying this. We go on walks all the time, and she's white. And she said to me, Tammy, can't you just know for yourself that you're worth it? Do white people have to believe that you're worth it? Which means that they don't understand the volume and the depth of racism and what it's like to be Black in America.
Well, and again, just
I have to say this, Dr. Fletcher. It's unfortunate. It's very unfortunate that for Black people who are successful, to white people, it means racism doesn't exist in America.
Yeah, and Tammy, to come back to a point that I was making earlier, let's parse a nuanced issue, all right? From the standpoint of knowing enough to know that you don't want to be us is the extent that I'm talking about.
Okay.
So when you start moving into the layers, we got to parse this issue and now start giving the proper conversation to the level of depth that you just spoke to. The level of depth that I spoke to was simply, they know enough to know I don't want to be you. Full stop. Then Thomas, we can have the conversation further from there.
Got it. Dr. Thomas, let's roll.
I mean, there is a lot there. I mean, I think with that clip, which I've seen, I think maybe, some of the audience has seen too. That's an audience that was, we have to consider the context, right? This is somebody who would come to one of her lectures, right? So they're already in a particular mindset. And I think if you ask that question to just a wide group of people who were not in a room, who did not have cameras on them, I think a lot of people might have said, yeah, I'd love to be treated like white folks, right? Would say, I'd love to be treated like I was black. Look at all these handouts that they get.
Oh, hell no, Dr. Tom. Y'all tripping tonight. Y'all is tripping tonight.
And you know that I'm telling you the truth. And I wish I could give you specific numbers. I don't have
what handouts do black people get? What handouts? Like they're knocking down affirmative action in every way. Meghan McCain on The View just said it's not fair if we judge people by the color of their skin based on the jobs that they have. And like, what handouts? What freaking handouts are we giving? They don't want to give us reparations. You know, I mean, I don't even get a stimulus check.
You got that right.
I don't even get a stimulus check. The hell handouts are we getting?
And this is
nobody wants to be black. That's white. Nobody other than Rachel Dolezal.
So I've actually had conversations with Rachel Dolezal, so I have to set that aside.
Okay. But continue. Go ahead, continue.
But what I will say is that yes, I think with given now, I love being black. 10 out of 10 would do again. Great experience. It's been great so far. I plan on being great for the future, right? But I do think if somebody were given the full weight, right, of the experience, I think they would probably think twice. But again, if you look at, and again, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but you can look at surveys where there are a lot of white folks who believe that they are the most discriminated against people in America. Mm-hmm. They genuinely believe this. They're not in front of a camera. They're not lying to you. It's somebody gave them an anonymous survey. They filled it out, and they genuinely think that they are being persecuted, that they are being mistreated, that they have it the worst in America because every other minority, everybody else has it better because just all these people are giving them handouts. And they genuinely believe this. I find this fascinating because I find it completely delusional.
Right.
But it is a fact. And I think that is something we have to keep in mind is that the stories that we tell ourselves, right, to put very simply, right, so the education that we give our kids, right, that we got as kids, right, and that we continue to give kids, we tell ourselves the stories, just like you were saying, Tammi, is that, yeah, there's some people and these folks got it bad, but it's probably something wrong with their culture. They must be doing something wrong because how could nobody wants to believe that they are contributing to oppression. Nobody wants to believe that. Yeah. And I think that really is the big disconnect here, is that it's very, very difficult to accept. And America is very, very bad at accepting that any part of us have contributed to continuing suffering anywhere.
Yeah. Dr. Flo.
Yeah, I think if you could separate the people in that room into 3 different groups, you'd find that there's a group of people who don't care about this issue at all and probably think in some of the same ways that Dr. Thomas just mentioned. There'd also be a group of people who do care about this issue and probably feel as if they're actively involved in doing something about it. But then I think there would be a very large group of people in the middle who are in a sense of denial, right? That they're kind of denying the history, they're denying, maybe consciously or subconsciously, they're denying that any of these things are actually issues, that racism is still a problem. We've had a black president. When do we move forward? And I think that is what we saw last year. There are a lot of issues. I live in St. Louis, a lot of issues in this city that have to do with racial inequality. But there are a lot of people that live in this city and know that those things are going on, but they're not really going on because they're not happening to me. There's a sense of just blindness, right? Like willful blindness that I think people are operating under. And I would say that that's probably a big portion of that pie, if you were to cut it into a pie chart, the group of people in that room. And I think to some extent that is helped along by a number of different ways of thinking, one of which would probably be what Dr. Thomas just mentioned.
We're going to take a quick break on the Tammi Mack Late Show and come right back on Fox Soul.
Tammi Mack. He doesn't do interviews too much, so this is a very special night.
Fox Soul presents The Mix.
Please help me welcome Prince Jackson to the mix.
Every Tuesday night.
So you are telling us that you have never moonwalked or you cannot moonwalk?
And I'm not going to say I'm never going to moonwalk. Maybe we'll have like a big event, you know? Do it right. I got to get some practice in, you know? Then I'll just surprise everybody with it.
Stream it live.
Let us know when you want to do that because we all will be too.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm Marissa. This is my best friend, Zoe.
Fox Soul's Screening Room.
Every high schooler has their villain, and I just backed up into mine.
I wanted to find that balance of comedy and drama where she could, come of age on screen in a short amount of time.
What's wrong here? I'm not black enough.
Featuring the next wave of black filmmakers.
That's where we are. That's where I am.
I have known so many women who've suffered in silence.
Hear the stories behind the stories.
I wrote 7 Pennies years ago on a little yellow pad and I put it away. I had heard so many stories about abuse in my family.
What y'all doing? Come here.
Look what you did now.
It's the slight slip when you're not paying attention when tragedies happen to our young girls.
Streaming Thursday nights on Fox Soul.
There's been a lot going on the internet with Monique Slaughter from Love and Hip Hop.
Fox Soul presents
Her and Dr. Dre are in a big fight.
Hollywood Unlocked, Uncensored.
Apparently we got a call from Dr. Dre and alleged that she felt threatened.
There was a long pause and he said, why is my name coming out your face?
Every Friday night, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific.
I did hear the call. That was straight out of Compton Dre on the phone. That was not Beats by Dre.
Stream it live on Fox Soul.
Show.
Welcome back to the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. Tonight, we're talking about what makes us us. That means what makes Black people in every sense of the word. If you love this content, then why don't you join our YouTube channel? Because that's where you get to chat with us live. I've got our soulmates in the chat right now. We'd love to hear from you. And make sure you give us a thumbs up if you like what you feel in here. Tell us how you feel. Let me see how you feel. John Kim says Dr. Thomas is making a really deep point. You're on the deep end of the water tonight, Dr. Thomas, but then again, you usually are.
That's why I stay.
Will says this is very, very good. And they, meaning white people, don't want to give up their fortune and they don't want to believe they are wrong. Oh, what do you think about that, Dr. Fletcher?
There's something, and we've heard this quite a bit over the last several months about white guilt. And we've seen a lot of it. We've seen a lot of it in terms of some of the reactions that we've seen, especially since May 25th and George Floyd, in terms of the reactions from businesses, from individuals, from my friends, even who are white, just reaching out, asking me, what can I do? Where was this 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
My man, yes.
There's an inherent guilt that's there. And we have to get to the root of why that guilt exists. There's a guilt that goes far beyond 2020 and George Floyd, far beyond Eric Gardner, far beyond going way back in time. If we actually unpack that and had that conversation with one another, I think we would get to the heart of, we realize that this is a nation that has been built on the backs of marginalized, disenfranchised individuals who never really reaped and still are looking to recoup their identity, self-worth, and then again, to use a Spike Lee term, our 40 acres. We're still looking to recoup what we justifiably and deservedly should be due. So there's a lot to unpack, but I'll leave the rest to my colleagues here.
Okay, so I'm going to move into this since you are bringing up, there's a lot to unpack and and you're bringing up this white guilt thing here. When it comes to certain tragedies throughout history, and you fellas can name those tragedies, I will not, but there have been several, communities that were affected by those tragedies oftentimes declare, never forget. And rightfully so. You should never forget horrific tragedies of history. But when Black folk bring up slavery Everybody wants to know why we always got to go back to the past and why we can't forget about it. Even Black people, in particularly these newer generations, are saying, we ain't got to go way back there. Why we got to go back there? Which means that there has not been a traditional sense of our culture and history taught from generation to generation to generation to respect. Because the other cultures respect where they come from and how they've evolved into what they are today. And they make it a part of their family history and their family traditions to remember at all cost, to never forget. Black people don't do that. We want to forget slavery. We want to forget those horrific acts that happened to us. We want to forget the raping. We want to forget the pillaging. We want to forget the whippings, the beatings. We want to forget the separations of our families. We want to forget the crosses that burn, the houses that burn down. We want to forget the men hanging from the trees. We want to forget it too. Why isn't it a part of our culture to remember those things in a real way?
I'll jump in. I'll jump in because you got me. You got me with that one. Tammi, I believe that some of that onus is on us as well. You mentioned and going back to even who we are as a people, as a spoken culture. A lot of what we have learned about our history was through communal discussion. I sat at the kitchen table with my parents, my dad, learning about my history. So there was no mistaking that I was going to know about it, and my siblings were going to know about it as well. And it was instilled in us that it was not going to be something optional. You would know it, you would know the degree of it, and we will continue reinforcing that. So much so to where we took it as a certain sense of cultural pride to know that. It wasn't that we simply wanted to continue rehashing the trauma and the pain of our past, but we also knew that there's a gradual wearing away of our culture and of our history. And if we continue to allow that to take place, think 25, 50 years from now, we still have people nowadays still trying to tell us slavery is a myth, that it didn't happen. We hold that responsibility to ensure that banner continues to be raised. So we move forward. So I start with myself. I start with generations that need to continue that conversation and passing that down, and the concentration and the earnestness that goes into continuing learning and the legacy of who we are as Black people in America. And there's the tragedy and the triumph of that both have to be respected.
Absolutely. Both have to be respected. The tragedy and triumph. Dr. Flo.
Yeah, why? I think there are a lot of reasons, and I'll name a couple that come to mind for me. I mean, one is people are not educated on slavery, whether willfully uneducated on it or not. And it's as much as it's taught, I think we have these parts of our popular culture and our political conversations that obscure it for a lot of people. Another reason is that for a lot of people, it seems like it was so long ago. It was, it seems like it's so far back that it doesn't really affect us in this particular moment. But in truth, it only ended 156 years ago. Humans very often live to be 80 years old or older. So that's only about 1.9 average American lifetimes ago. And I think that this is partly because there's this general disregard for the tremendous presence of history on our present day, right? I mean, which is a part of our culture, and this is a part of the problem of one of the bigger problems in our culture, is that we don't really regard history as something to hold on to understand, and to use it to confront the future. And that's something that I really try to bring to the classroom when I'm teaching my students about these subjects. And I think also in some cases, many people don't want to fully understand the history of enslavement in this country because they feel that by understanding that, it might kind of break down some of these illusions of American equality that are foundational, right, to some people's lives in the country. The illusion that slavery was kind of like a minor blip or some anomaly in American history, and not something that for the longest part of American history actually was a very central aspect of what it meant to live in America. And so that therefore allows people to think of race as no longer a part of the conversation, and to kind of like throw off this heavy albatross of the history of American slavery and kind of move forward as if that's not really, it's not present anymore.
Right. Dr. Thomas?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think, and I'm gonna go to what Dr. Flo was saying and build on the education part, because, just me spending a lot of time in the classroom, that's a big thing for me. But also to talk about stories, right? A lot of it has to do with the kind of stories that we tend to tell ourselves about how this country was formed, right? And I think the story that we tell kids and that we tell ourselves is that slavery was something that some bad people did. It was a mistake, and then it was over. And then there were still some mean white folks out there, but then Martin Luther King came along and said, hey, mean folks, stop being mean. And they were just, you know what, bro, you're right. And then they stopped being mean, and then everybody was really nice, which obviously, all three of, all four of us on this show know that is not the case. But there are a lot of people who have genuinely believed that, and they continue to believe that. And the very difficult thing is, like I was saying, is we like stories. As society, we like stories. We like stories with a beginning, with a middle, and an end. We like a story with a bad guy and a good guy, and nobody wants to believe that they are the bad guy. And so that is why, we have things like, if anybody's familiar with the white savior trope, right? Which is, again, there's in a lot of these movies about racism or about anything like this, that there's always that one, and it's a little bit less common now, but it still exists.
The Lone Ranger.
All of these things, right? We can go on and on with these things, right? Where there's a white character who, there's a whole bunch of mean in a movie. Just think about a movie that you watch where there's a whole bunch of mean white folks, and there's that one nice white person who's just, you know what, let's not be mean to these black folks. And then as a viewer, that allows you to think of yourself as that person. You know what, I identify with that guy. If I was alive in the 50s, I'd be him. If I was alive back during slavery days, I would be her. I wouldn't be those mean folks. I'd be them. And these stories that we tell ourselves, I think it helps people, unfortunately, to forget and to fail to understand not only the past but the present. And I think that's why you see people, again, failing to understand the weight that racism exerted on the founding of this country, but also continues to exert on our presence today.
Wow. We're going to take a quick break on that. Soulmates, I see you in the chat room, and I am coming to you next on the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul.
Tammi Mac.
I've known you for a long time. You know we not above the here on this show. Why are you dressed like a public defender?
Later with Leon.
First time I did comedy, I knew this was my lick.
Okay.
I said, this what I do. This what I do good.
Stream it live every Monday night.
What would you tell the people out there to stay focused and accomplish their dreams, man, from the mouth of Corey Holcomb?
I want to tell everybody out there from the bottom of my heart, your mama.
On Fox Soul.
Look! 911, where's your emergency?
Everyone's on their way. What happened? So your friend's not breathing. Yes, please get my mom and dad. Oh my God.
I don't know Selena very well, but I know y'all.
What's up, y'all?
Y'all a mess. A mess. But I love you and I adore you.
Cocktails with the Queens.
Do you have a celebrity crush?
No, I ain't got no celebrity questions now. I'm pretty much good.
Sip and Serve every Monday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific.
Claudia produced the movie. I was in her movie. Yeah. She had a fine young man too. Lord have mercy.
Stream it live on Fox Soul.
What up, soulmates? It's your boy Romeo, and I gotta tell you, Fox Soul's Black Report is the place to be. It's the spot where we bring you headline news from Black America's perspective.
No other vaccine in history has been monitored like this one.
It's where Black Lives Matter is a daily conversation, and we celebrate the young, gifted, and Black. It's our voice and our truth.
Looking for a mentor, see how you can add value to them, because you don't want to just take. It's a two-way relationship.
So check us out on Fox Soul's Black Report Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern and 4 p.m. Pacific.
Welcome back to the Tammi Mack Late Show on Fox Soul, everybody. Please welcome the author of Uncontrollable Blackness and assistant professor at Washington University in St. Louis, Dr. Douglas Flo, Vice News correspondent, Dr. Dexter Thomas, and I'm sorry, I was looking at the wrong paperwork here. And let's give it up for Dr. Sean Fletcher as well. I'm going to the chat room real quick and see what they're talking about in here. Keeping Nettie says, my ancestors would not want me to forget them. I agree, Nettie. Richard Moonstone says, it is strange, no matter what we have gone through all over this planet as Black people, there is nothing else we would rather be than Black. And this feeling only gets stronger the older we get. Ooh. It's interesting because we talked about Jane Elliott asking an auditorium full of white people if they would want to be Black. But then there's another question. Do Black people want to be white? Go ahead, Dr. Thomas.
I mean, I suppose, listen, far be it from me to speak for all Black people. I would never try to do that, right? None of us would. I will say, you know, and I find the commenter, and shout out to the person who said that in the chat about, you know, that they despite everything, they want to continue to be Black, right? I don't want to unknow anything, right? Being Black in America, and I think this is the sense where we're being really a lot of minoritized people in the United States, or really anywhere, is it allows you to see America for what it truly is, right? I think about a lot of people, for example, let's go to James Baldwin, right? I think he understood America in a way that a lot of his white contemporaries simply did not understand it.
Yeah.
Right. And so now, would I trade that knowledge, that deep knowledge of America, for a better shot at getting a bank loan? No. I like being me. I'm good. That's my take. But maybe some have another perspective.
Well, you know, until you said a better shot at getting a bank loan, I was all on board with But now I'm like, maybe I'm gonna hop off that Black train, gonna get this loan.
To each their own.
Right. Incog, I don't know if this is true. Speaking of guilt, I mean, look at how Ben Affleck didn't want his DNA episode to feature the fact that his family owned slaves. He got Henry Louis Gates to omit it, compromising editorial standards. I don't have the knowledge of whether that's true or not. Hopefully our producers can get that before the end of the night. But Dr. Fletcher, do we want to be white?
Again, I'll echo the good Dr. Thomas. I think we have to parse the conversation, and there are a subsect, and we've seen examples in our society.
Like who, Dr. Fletcher?
Well, I won't name names. I'm
just interested in knowing who want to be white.
But in general, I'll say in general, there is a subset of society that want the privilege that they see whites get, much like what Dr. Thomas mentioned about, and some of it was, again, tongue in cheek about being able to get that loan. And we laughed about it. But there are some that, again, it's not decoupled from the point that you made just a second ago, Tammy, around sanitizing and scrubbing, and some within the Black community not wanting to embrace some of the tragedy of our history. I think it goes part and parcel to moving in a direction to where we would love to have the selective opportunity to be able to move into spaces of privilege that our Black skin still does not, unfortunately, allow for us in many instances in the United States of America. So while I do believe that there is a subsection who wants to be white from the standpoint of identity and privilege, I'm not saying white skin, of identity and privilege in America, that's undeniable. That's at the heart of what we're talking about, is privilege and access to power and power. That's still reserved for a lot of folks who look different than us. So when we talk about wanting to be white, I have yet to see very many people who want the skin tone change. They want the access that they don't see Black people getting. So I gotta be meticulous when we talk about what that actually means.
Yeah.
So that's where I rest on that.
I love that. We don't want to be white, but we want white privilege.
Absolutely.
There it is. Whoop, there it is. Whoop, there it is.
That's what we're fighting for.
That's exactly what we're fighting for, and what we have always been fighting for. Dr. Fletcher, I'm sorry, Dr. Flo. I'm gonna move to something else because when Dr. Fletcher mentioned that there are some of us who would prefer to, be white, and we ain't gonna mention no names, but some of our soulmates have started dropping names. Bo says Tiger Woods.
I knew they'd do it. They never let us down. I knew that.
We talked about Jay-Z earlier. He had a song called "The Story of OJ." I'm not Black, I'm OJ. Okay. The last time we covered this topic, we briefly touched on the expression "all skin folk ain't kin folk." So what makes some Black people detached from what most of us feel as a collective struggle? I love this question. What is it? They're telling me I got to go to break. I don't even think we're going to be able to answer the question. But think about it. What is it that makes some Black people detached from our collective struggle? We're going to talk about it when we come right back on the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul.
Tammi Mac.
There's been a lot going on the internet with Monique Slaughter from Love and Hip Hop.
Fox Soul presents
Her and Dr. Dre are in a big fight.
Hollywood Unlocked Uncensored.
Apparently we got a call from Dr. Dre and alleged that she felt threatened.
There was a long pause and he said, why is my name coming out your face?
Every Friday night, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific.
I did hear the call. That was straight out of Compton Dre on the phone. That was not Beats by Dre.
Stream it live on Fox Soul.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. If you could see you through my eyes instead of your ego, I believe you'd be surprised to see that you've been blind. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Yeah, before you abuse, criticize and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes.
I see them arms though. You looking good, bro.
I'm paying enough money a month for it,
Right?
TGIF.
I just figured I'd get the girls a little preview of the spring summer collection, aka my body. Just a little sample.
Serving up Friday night tea.
What would you give Q's body on a scale of 1 to 10 right now, Al?
I'll give him an 8. 8.5.
Stream it live on Fox Soul.
They don't call me Slim Goody for nothing.
Tammi Mac.
Welcome back to the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. We left off with this powerful question. Why is it? There's a saying. Black folk have a saying. All kinfolk ain't skin folk. Is that right? Am I saying it backwards? All skin folk ain't kinfolk. For some of you who don't know what it means everybody that's Black, ain't your kinfolk just because they Black. But what makes some Black people detached from what most of us feel is a collective struggle? I don't know, people like perhaps Judge Clarence Thomas, people like Ben Carson, maybe. I mean, there are a collective group of people who don't really feel our plight, but are just as Black as we are. Dr. Flo, you want to start with that one?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know ultimately what's in people's hearts and in their minds. I think everybody has their set of experiences. Everyone has their set of struggles, and everyone forms their own opinion about those things, about the sources of their difficulty, about what communities they identify with, using this like kaleidoscope of experiences that they have. As I said before, I think ultimately throughout American history, even before the end of slavery and definitely during slavery, African Americans have had to work very hard to kind of continuously cultivate a sense of collective struggle, particularly because of the diversity of experiences and perceptions of humans in general that humans just actually will have under normal circumstances. But I can't speak for anyone directly, but I would think that people like Pan-Africanists like Malcolm X and Marcus Garvey would probably say, Blackness makes you a part of a Pan-African collective destiny, whether you know that or not. And if you're paying attention at all, eventually the world will, you'll find that out at some point because the world will tell you. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. There are probably a lot of different reasons why people come to that conclusion or come to the point where they make the decisions that might make someone think of them as people very often has popularly thought of the people that you mentioned in the beginning of the segment. But yeah, it's a really deep subject. We could have an entire show about that.
I always think that there's a segment of Black people that love to be that Black person. I mean, Black people, I don't know if it still exists, but there was a time not long ago, like yesterday, that Black, you always got that Black person that's like, I'm the only Black person in the neighborhood. I'm the only Black home over here. I'm the only Black person in the office. And they say it with pride and they say it with this. And I feel like there is a portion of Black people who are proud that they're not one of those Black people, if you understand what I'm saying. Dr. Thomas, how can you detach yourself from this struggle?
I mean, I think that is one of the things that white supremacy and colonialism and all these other things, racism in general, has been very successful at, is duping individual people into thinking that, listen, if I can just show these people who I think of as above me that I'm different, maybe they'll treat me a bit better. Maybe they'll treat me like a second-class citizen instead of a third-class citizen. And within any population, I think you'll find some individuals who will make that deal or who will attempt to make that deal. Yeah. Eventually, I think a lot of them find out that it's a raw deal and it's not real. But I think the other thing here is that, the notion that we all as Black people are headed, we all think of ourselves as headed in the same direction. I think there are certainly fractures within that. I mean, I think of, again, this happens within any population, I think, in any demographic. But, there are some who do not, are we treating our Black sisters as the same as we treat our Black brothers, right? Are we treating our Black LGBT, community members? Are we all facing the same? Do we all believe that, their liberation is bound up with my liberation? We're all heading the same direction. Some people don't agree. That's extremely unfortunate. Right. And it's extremely
we're about to run out of time here. I want to make sure I get everything in for you guys. Dexter, tell us what we can expect from you. Vice News tonight. Where can we get it?
It's on Vice TV, or if you look for my name, Dexter Thomas, Vice, pretty much anywhere on YouTube, you find me.
And Dr. Flo, where can we get the book, Uncontrollable Blackness?
It can be bought on Amazon.com, UNC Press's website, any place that books are sold, you can get Uncontrollable.
Dr. Sean Fletcher, Consultancy, what's that about and how can we get it? You're going to wrap us up tonight.
Cultural competency, diversity, equity, and inclusion, bringing some of these conversations to those spaces that we need to be represented in a lot more of, and represented not just physically, but in this conversation as well. So SeanJFletcher.com.
You got it. Thank you so much, Dr. Fletcher, Dr. Flo, and Dr. Thomas. And I can't leave without Nettie saying, excellent show, Tammi Mack. I appreciate seeing intelligent Black men, and these were exceptional. That's all you're going to find on the Tammi Mack Late Show, boo-boo. You're going to find men who pay their child support and men who are doctors. That's how I roll. You understand what I'm saying? It's the Tammi Mack Late Show on Fox Soul. And until tomorrow, it's a blessing to be in your box. Bye, y'all.